You're listening to Rebel Spirituality with me, Sam Goldfinch. Here's the truth. Wisdom doesn't follow rules. So each week we're going to explore what it means to wake up your way so you can live a more peaceful, creative and inspired life no matter your circumstances. It's time to blaze your unique path to truth. Hey Rebel. Today I want to talk about peak experiences, and here's the truth. If you are constantly chasing peak experiences, transcendent experiences, kind of otherworldly experiences, however you kind of relate to it, you're going to miss out on the one thing that matters in this life, the one thing that's real, and that's now. That's whatever is happening right now. Like, take a second to just kind of sit and allow your awareness to just, in a really relaxed way, just kind of notice what's going on around you. Take a look around the room. This is your life, right? This right now, this is what really matters. Anything else that the mind conjures up or any thinking that conjures up, that's not your life. That is it's a beautiful set of equipment that we can use to kind of help ourselves navigate and dream and think about things in life. But that's not your life. That's not real. That's not the real experience that matters. And what happens to so many of us is at some point when we're younger, we read something or we listen to something. It may have happened while you've been listening to some of these podcasts or reading some things that I've written, or perhaps it was something else. Perhaps, I know for me, it was when I read The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle. There was a breaking, there was a disidentification between what and who I really am and the thinking that's in my mind. Now, it came with a real sense of relief because I had been so strapped to that. You know, if whatever was consumed was, if I was consumed with sadness in the moment, then that was me, right? There was no break from that. It was just that was just who I was in that moment, right? And of course, whenever consciousness, if thoughts of sadness or feelings of sadness float through us in that moment, that is real for us in the now. All right, this isn't about denying what's here. What's here is actually the most beautiful thing, whatever happens. But what seems to happen is there's that sense of relief and there's a resonance to it. So for me, I know that sense of relief of, oh man, like I'm not who I thought I was. I'm so much more than that. It had a resonance that lasted for years, actually. And it was really beautiful. And there was this background piece that I was connected to that's always there. And then at some point, I continued with a misunderstanding, right? Which was, I thought the human condition was going to stop for me. I thought I was going to be able to create a constant peak experience, if you like, one where I was never afflicted by sadness or I would never felt anxious anymore. That was one of the big things that I wanted to try and banish from my experience. And yeah, I started feeling like I was doing something wrong because these things were still showing up. They were still appearing. And I had this story that I was doing something wrong. And I had this story that I would reach an end point. And I was fixated on this idea of this peak experience, this constant experience, this awakening, this kind of idea of enlightenment that was going to kind of come along and save the day and free me forever. And I would never have to experience these human feelings ever again. But I now see how innocently kind of immature that understanding was for me. No one escapes the human condition. It's absolutely true that as we recognize who we are, and in any moment where we're not identified with thinking, not identified with the ego, not identified with our self-concept, we are aware. And that's the truth of you. That's the truth of me, right? It's not to turn that into some kind of object of awareness or something that we're thinking about or a concept. No, just the experience, just the recognition even of aware in this moment now. And that's the only opportunity to experience it, because aware doesn't exist in time. It sits in now. The self-concept is created through time, memory and projections of the future and the history that we say that we have. But none of that's existent here in the now. You are. Who and what you really are is here. But the self-concept, there's no time. So there's no time for the self-concept. There's no time for those stories, just you. Well, that's the peak experience. And sometimes when we notice that, when we disidentify from the thinking and we fall back into the truth of our being, there is a feeling of relief that comes with that. But sometimes it's just a recognition. But the one powerful thing that happens is that it shows us that we're free and that we don't have to get caught up in our stories and we don't have to add layers to it. And anxiety and worry and fear or hope and joy or whatever, they're not problems. It's not something that we need to lock into place and hold on to for dear life for fear that we'll never experience them again. And they're not something that we need to get rid of. We need to do something about them. We get to just recognize the truth of us. And just like any experience, they will fall away in their own time. So we start to feel more peace, right? We don't necessarily experience that Hollywood peak experience. Perhaps there was that experience we had in our teens or our early 20s that we hang on to and we say to ourselves, golly, if I could feel like that all the time, then that's what the secret sauce would be. But actually, the secret sauce is in being relaxed about what's ever happening now, being so relaxed that the recognition of you is there, no matter what's going on, whether it's calm, whether it's a clear highway, whether there's a traffic jam of thinking. And that recognition is what moves us. It just it's the only thing that's constant. It's the only thing that's real. So that's what we don't want to miss out on. We don't want to miss out on that by innocently being focused on some peak experience or some idea of how we think it's supposed to be or some concept of awakening or enlightenment. It's right here, right now. It's never going to be anywhere else. I hope you go and have an amazing day. I'll see you soon.